It is my pleasure now to introduce Supervisor Michael Antonovich from the 5th District. Supervisor Antonovich.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure for the county to be joined by all of the various cities in the county of Los Angeles to voice our strong objection to the highway robbery that had been taking place in Sacramento. Just as substance abuse has destroyed families and individuals, the fiscal abuse of Sacramento is going to be destroying the opportunities for cities and counties to provide those vital services so necessary for public safety, children, and those seniors and others. We have a situation today in California where the state workforce exploded by 24% between 1997 to 2007. It increased 24%. We had a complaint that because of the 2/3 vote obstacle, we couldn't get all the taxes increased to get the budget passed on time. However, currently, California has the highest gasoline and sales taxes, the second highest income tax, and the highest business taxes on the West Coast. So obviously, there's no inability to increase taxes when they need to. They claim that Proposition 13 has crippled state revenues, but between 1981 and 2007, the revenues increased from $6.4 billion to $43 billion, which is a 600% increase. What we have is a situation where that increase was higher than the rate of population growth and inflation over that same period. The state of California has over 300 boards and commissions, 11 agencies, and 79 departments. They are separate, but they perform many of the same functions and services. There has to be a need to consolidate and eliminate those programs that are not necessary or are taking revenues from the cities and counties across the state to do their jobs. Robbing the state's ability to take money from the cities and counties via the redevelopment funds is again going to impact our ability for public safety. The state ought to look at reforming their form of operation. There are 2 states that have, of the 4 states with a full-time legislature, California and New York, full-time legislature, and yet today they have not been able to pass a budget that was representative and necessary to provide good services for the communities and fiscal responsibility at the state level. What they ought to be having is a part-time legislature. They ought to end term limits so we have seasoned representatives who can deal with experience in dealing with the sensitive issues of finance. They ought to be eliminating the non-essential commissions, some that pay as high as $132,000 when they ought to be giving those members a $100 stipend as they do in local government. And they ought to eliminate legislation that requires more money to pass than the recipient receives, and they need to review reforming civil service laws. But we need structural change, structural reform in Sacramento, and not by taking money from cities and counties, but by reforming their operations. When I was in the state legislature, we had committees and subcommittees. But today, the legislative branches have increased those numbers of committees and subcommittees and select committees. Many of them are just employment agencies for their friends. What they ought to do is reduce and streamline their operations, just as cities and counties have had to reduce and streamline their operations. Structural reform and not taking revenues from local government that provide the basic services for the people who are in need. Public safety, health, children, and other vital services. Thank you.